now call the City Council special meeting on Thursday, November 7th, 2024 to order. Deputy City Clerk, if you would please take the roll call.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Sassen,
Present.
Councilmember Shrubnik, here. Councilmember Lutzis,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kane,
Here.
Mayor Herbig,
Here.
and is Councilmember Culver excused?
Councilmember Culver is excused. Any objections? Hearing none, Councilmember Culver is excused. Now we'll move on to the land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgement to honor First Peoples. We acknowledge the city of Kenmore is situated upon the ancestral lands of the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Soxswaddle, Duwamish, Still-Guamish, Tulalip, Quamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are a part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land, which they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. Honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice, equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities, acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land. Now, let's move on to the flag salute. Deputy City Manager, where's the fun? Yeah. I understand.
Well, we have two items for Where's the Fun tonight. And the first one, so one of our annual traditions here at the City of Kenmore is a pumpkin contest. So the departments compete with each other. And you can see some of the entries for the contest before you. So there's a couple there. We can go to the next slide. I like the seaplane. I think that was really fun, the Kenmore pump plane. But the winner of this year's contest was the Farmer's Market pumpkin. Isn't that fun? So we wanted to show all of you some of the fun that we have and the fun, healthy competition within departments at the City of Kenmore. And then the second Where's the Fun item was our wonderful Dia de los Muertos celebration. So on Saturday, November 2nd, the DEIA committee and the city co-hosted our first ever Dia de los Muertos celebration as our community honored our deceased loved ones. Over 200 people came to the hangar where they helped build a community ofrenda, dined on traditional pan de muertos provided by the city, an authentic Mexican cuisine from the La Costanita food truck, and together enjoyed a screening of the Pixar film Coco projected on the big screen in the hangar. In addition to the food and movie, attendees enjoyed decorating sugar skulls and creating papel picado and marigolds, which are called cempasúchiles, and they are associated with the Dia de Muertos, and they made those from tissue paper. The community also decorated a beautiful ofrenda, which honored our dearly departed family members, friends, and even pets. Bastyr University student Ashley Charlene Gonzalez, she dressed in traditional attire. She was in that first picture with Garrett Oppenheim, and she read some opening remarks, teaching attendees what Dia de los Muertos is all about. And so we want to thank the DEIA committee members who urged the city to host this event and put in the effort to plan and oversee the event, in particular, Juanita Aguilar, Lev Elson Schwab, Carlos Gill, Mariel Metapor, and Suzanne Greathouse, and the Kenmore Heritage Society for all the efforts that they put in to help make this event possible. We also want to thank Samuel Rodriguez of Biz Diversity for his help in planning the event.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's wonderful to see our community coming together to celebrate events like Dia de los Muertos and having such a wonderful turnout and community members who really, and staff who helped make this happen. So thank you so much. Okay, now we are moving on to public comments. Welcome to the council's meeting. Please address your comments to the mayor and council. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. There are more than 20 speakers. Time will be reduced to 2 minutes per speaker. The clerk will call your name when it's your turn. The presiding officer may choose to alternate between in-person and online comments. Your name. Please state your name and city of residence and keep within the allotted time. To make everyone feel welcome and safe here, please refrain from booing, clapping, heckling, yelling, or other interruptions. The meeting is recorded for transparency. Thank you for being here and sharing your input respectfully.
We have one individual signed up for on-site public comment, Patrick O'Brien.
Pat O'Brien, Kenmore. So my question to you folks is, where are the funds? Sound familiar? We've got taxes and levies, and we have grants and other gifts. But right now, it seems like our budget's pretty tapped out. And so if you're going to do anything else in Kenmore, you're going to have to find some new revenue sources. And one of the ones I like is having gambling come back to the bowling alley. But that would mean that you'd have a good relationship with them and you could talk about development ideas. You also need to up your sales tax. And one of the things we're sorely missing are restaurants. Jay's Cafe is about to go. Mia Roma, gone. Tai Ho, gone. European Deli, gone. And who knows what other restaurant offerings are out there or which ones could be included in new projects like where Jay's Cafe is or Mia Roma. Why isn't there a frontage where all the noise is? Why isn't that a cafe or a restaurant instead of just densely packed people in the transit-oriented development? It makes no sense at all to have people living on the street that close to that much traffic and expect them to be sane. It's crazy. I would take the model of people need a place to stop and do something in Kenmore. That's a great way to bring them into our city and have them at least get a sandwich or something. So the next thing is I'd like to see low-income people have a position, an ownership position. And I see that people have bought the trailer parks and use federal money to buy them. And then the rates on the trailer parks have doubled in many cases. And so these people are being priced out of their little trailers. And we say we want to protect them, but we're not acting like we want to protect them. They are part of our community before anybody else, anybody we would bring in new. They are part of our community, and we need to find a way to buy some property so they can put these dwellings on or get them guarantees of dwellings. We should have a hiring freeze. We also have Army Corps of Engineers has not issued a dredging permit yet. And so that is in question. We do have the report on Samantha the sturgeon, and she was found to be full of contaminants. And I think some of you might have seen there. We know the police budget's going to go up, and where are your reserves to pay for the police and the added budgetary restraints you're going to have? The last thing is, I'd love to see a federal way-sized swimming center, and I'd like to take the footprint of that and put it up at St. Edward's Park and maybe the pumping station and see if we have enough room for a large swimming pool.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, can we move on to virtual?
Yes, please.
We have one resident signed up for virtual public comments. Stacy Valenzuela, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Stacy Valenzuela, Kenmore. First, I'd like to thank and recognize the local Kenmore and Shoreline veterans that helped work on the veteran tribute I'm sorry that the vision was overlooked, but you are appreciated. In regards to the budget, I am confused. First, we were informed that 3 million of the Climate Commitment Act funds would go to sidewalks out of the 4.1 million, not climate action, and only 80,000 would go towards the CAP plan. This budget shows 3 million for acquisition and some consulting fees. Then next week's consent agenda shows another 3 million for consulting fees for environmental services, which an environmental services director was just hired. So is that double of $6 million or $3 million? I'm so confused. Second, the parks rhododendron shows 200,000 and Tolachadis shows another 80,000 going towards those locations. What kind of work is needed at this high amount of funding after all the $8 million at one park and another $2 million for the boathouse that's supposed to be, but is non-public, and the row club that is still in default of over $500,000? I do not see funds designated for those in our community most vulnerable, the cost burden residents. I see our tax dollars going to employees, clubs, and dream visions. I would like to see that change. I hope you listen and look at the budget and think about all these things because it's really important. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, that concludes our public comment list.
Thank you. And I want to thank our public commenters today. Your voice matters. Now we'll move on to the business agenda. Item A, budget presentations, general fund, strategic reserve, strategic opportunities, transportation benefit district, UT debt service, real estate excise tax, walkways and waterways, transportation impact fee, public works operations center, affordable housing, surface water management, capital, Swamp Creek, and equipment replacement, presented by Melinda Miller and department heads for staff and staff for discussion and possible direction.
Thank you, Council. Good evening. This is the last of 3 presentations regarding all the different funds in the budget. And then after this, we will bring forward a complete look at everything related to the budget on next Tuesday at that council meeting. So because of the conversations that we've had recently about the budget and some additional needs related to staffing, I have some new information that I'm presenting related to the general fund tonight that typically I would not be presenting at this point. So in this first slide, you can see there are some staffing adjustments recommended for the 25-26 budget. And that would be a budget/finance manager position, approximately $335,000 for the biennium, a public works manager, again, another $335,000. Those costs are partially offset by the double counting of a staff person in the budget. So that amount is $307,000. And then for information technology, we feel there's a need to have an IT assessment done of our systems to look at the hardware, software, storage, security, and how we should be structured for the long term going forward. So we are estimating $90,000 for that just in 2025. So a one-time cost to do that assessment and then make decisions from there. So here is a chart. There was some research that we did looking at our neighbors and what kind of positions do they have in their department heads. So you can see we looked at Mount Lake Terrace, Mill Creek, Covington, and Maple Valley, similar populations. And you can kind of see some of the areas. We have a lot of open areas where other cities have people, and some of that is the way that they're structured, but we definitely are on the low end of staffing. If you look at the summary at the bottom, you can see Kenmore has 4 finance people and the 4-city average is 6.2. We have no HR and the average is 1.6. We have no IT and the average is 2.4. So.
Yeah, and as Melinda alluded, it's really hard to find a city exactly like Kenmore. So they're similar in population, but these cities vary in service mix. So for example, Mount Lake Terrace is closer to a full service city versus being a contract city like Kenmore is. So so for full transparency, we just need to say that, yes, we compared ourselves with cities of similar size, but we couldn't find a city that had the exact same service mix as Kenmore.
All right. So with those additional expenses, you can see kind of in the middle of the chart, we had presented previously the top part, which shows general and street fund combined revenues and expenses with a net impact of $365,000 to the negative. And then adding in the additional costs just mentioned, you can see the $335,000 for the 2 positions, the duplicate staff, 307, and then the IT study. So the total impact for the biennium is an additional $452,000 of expenses. And that impacts the general fund to the tune of 412 to the negative for the biennium. And then when you add in the street fund, they have another $400,000 overspend. And so the total is $818,000 overspend for the biennium for both the general and street fund combined.
Looks like we have a question from Councilmember Lutsis.
Yes, I'm looking at the line that says IT study 2025. I know that originally that was proposed to us at a cost of $150,000, and it looks like it's dropped a little bit. Could you speak to that
Yeah,
potentially
absolutely.
about? Thank you.
Yeah, so we really didn't have a chance when we first kind of ballparked the 150. And so we were just trying to make sure we were covered. In that time, we were able to do some research and one, looking at what we paid in 2013 for the assessment we had done then, which was not of the same scale, but 10, 11 years ago, it was $30,000. So I took that model and I extrapolated and I came up with possibly 70 grand, not counting taxes. And then we also got some information from another city. Was it Lake Forest Park? I don't remember who it was, but there was another nearby city that's in the process of having an assessment done. Again, don't know the level of their work, but they're estimating is at $40,000 pre-tax. So.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. All right. So the previous slide did not include our special project and Lake Point expenses, which we've talked about previously. So now I have incorporated where we stand with revenue, which hasn't changed, and then the expenses for Lake Point, special projects, and the new costs mentioned above to show you the full cost and full impact to the budget of both ongoing and one-time costs. So you can see just for the general fund, for the combined biennium, there is a net impact of $3 million to our general fund reserves. And then combining general and street fund, the impact is 3.5 million. Okay, so what does that do? How does that impact our fund balances? You can see our fund balances are anticipated to be about 9.4 million at the start of 2025. And then spending down those dollars would result in the general fund being around 6.3 million at the end of the biennium. The street fund would be around 2 million for a total of 8.3 million at the end of the biennium for combined general fund and street fund.
Councilmember Shrevenick has a question.
And I think I might have asked this in our one-on-ones, but can you just remind us for the public's benefit, what our target fund balances for general fund? and street fund are?
It's
I mean, it's
20%.
way above the minimum, I know.
Yes,
but
it's
yeah.
20% of operating expenses, so it's about 3.5 million. Oh, one of the things that was asked for was budget savings. So I created this chart and gathered some information. Yes, costs have gone up in a lot of areas, but surprise, I was really shocked at the number. So we've actually did a lot of cutting in the budget. And to be honest, I didn't pull every single penny. So I just kind of took the big numbers that had a nice explanation. So you can see every department basically is represented, even council. And so, yeah, we've cut back close to $400,000 from what was in the budget in the current year.
And as Melinda mentioned, that doesn't include all the shaving of all the little things we did, you know, like taking something that was $750 and dropping it down to $500 and things like that. And so
Yep.
probably even more if you count all those little
Yes.
shavings.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to thank you for putting this slide together, not only for us, but for our public to see the work we're doing. 386,000 is a substantial savings.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was very happy to see that too. I knew that we'd done some work in that area, but this was really cool to see it in print. Okay, so that was it for the general fund. I just want to pause if there's any other questions about that update to the general fund.
Councilmember Shrevenick.
Again, I know we've seen these graphs, but can you either descriptively or visually kind of remind us, you know, obviously we're pulling out money from the fund balance, but we have a trajectory where we no longer do that after this biennium. I don't know if you have that or you can describe that.
Yeah, I don't have that in here, and that will rely on, that's going to be a part of what you're going to see on Tuesday related to city managers' FSP recommendations. And you'll see all those charts and graphs, but it relies on implementing different revenue strategies. Okay, so strategic reserve, I finally got ahead of the curve and put the page number on the slide, so you'll know exactly what page number to go to. So on page 131, you can see the information. I'll flip there in case there's questions. Strategic reserve, it serves as our emergency reserve. We don't plan on using any of those dollars. We cannot exceed 0.37 cents per 1,000 assessed value. So that would be $3 million. We have like $1.55 million projected at the end of the biennium. And again, not planning on spending any of the money. And right now it's earning interest income. Oh, question?
Councilmember Marshall has a
Yeah,
question.
apologies. Is the 1.55 going to be the interest it earns or the whole thing's going to be going down?
The 1.55 is with the interest that is anticipated to be earned. So that's where it looks like we will end the biennium, which includes any interest income earned in that period.
The strategic reserve is going to go down, right?
No, it
No.
doesn't have 3 million. We cannot exceed 3 million.
I'm sorry, I misread it.
Yes,
Thank
so
you.
that's just a parameter. Sorry if that was misleading.
Councilmember Lutsis.
You said that this is our main source of interest income. What sort of investments are those put into? I assume fairly liquid ones, so we can access them if need be.
Yes,
Okay.
so we have a large amount of money in LGIP, which is the state local government investment program. And I think we have maybe 3 million there, and that's completely liquid. And then we have more money that is in different bonds at different maturities. And so it's on a very quick maturity cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Strategic Opportunities Fund, page 133. This has been created from general reserve dollars, general fund reserve dollars when we have extra money and we want to move it into the Strategic Opportunities Fund. So it serves as a savings account and we can use it to respond to certain initiatives or opportunities that come up. For this biennium, we're not proposing to have any expenditures or transfers. And that's because we have a low fund balance anticipated at the end of the biennium, and it will continue to earn a small amount of interest income. And any expenditures that were hitting the fund in 23-24 have been moved to the general fund. So we don't have any ongoing expenditures hitting there. Transportation Benefit District Fund, page 146. This is where we have our car tab fee revenues come in here, and then these dollars are used for transportation improvements and road preservation efforts. So we are now generating the $40 per vehicle, which that fee was increased in 2023. We get about 1.4 million in fee revenue, about 20,000 in interest, and we transfer the money into the street fund where the operations occur and where that money is spent. And we are projected to have a $176,000 ending fund balance. So our UTGO debt service fund. So this is where we collect the money that we get from the residents for the property tax levy for the walkways and waterways projects. And the revenues are deposited in here and then we pay out of that fund. So that's the only activity that happens in this fund. For 25-26, we're anticipating levy proceeds of 2.1 million, principal of 600-ish principal each year, and then the interest around 450 or so to be paid on those. Real estate excise tax fund, so page 156. So we have REIT 1 and REIT 2, so they each are 0.25% of real estate excise taxes, and it's dedicated to capital expenditures. There's a small amount that can be used for some maintenance, but we really just focus the money on capital expenditures. 1.8 million is projected annually and over $250,000 of interest income. Let's see, the big expense is Public Works Operations Center, as you are well aware of, and then 1.6 million to the Transportation Capital Fund to support those activities. And it's anticipated to have a $1.7 million ending fund balance. Walkways and Waterways Fund. So this is where the capital construction was happening. This is that fund. It's winding down. This is page 158. Funds were transferred to this fund and parks as needed, but the project is complete and we are not anticipating any transfers or expenditures. The remaining fund balance will continue to earn interest income. And we are looking to close out the fund, distribute monies to other capital funds for the next biennium. Transportation impact fee. So transportation impact fees on page 165, it's assessed on new development, and obviously the funds are going to be restricted to transportation projects because it's increasing capacity. Needs to increase capacity. So the budget in 2024, the fee for a single family house is $6,822.20. There's no changes anticipated for 2025. The projected impact fees are going to be $375,025 and $350 in 26. So that would leave us with about a $1.5 million projected ending fund balance. Oh, there's more on this. So These fees were updated and put into effect in January of '24. The fees obviously fluctuate depending on development. And we are expected to see a drop in this next biennium in the development. So a 49% reduction from 23-24. And then you can see the listed projects that where we will receive impact fees, and there's no staff in this fund. And there haven't been staff in the other funds that I've mentioned so far either.
Councilmember Lutsis.
As we're going through, I'm just noticing how investment income is being projected to dip a little bit. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And could you speak to that maybe?
because
just
interest
briefly?
rates are dropping. And as
Okay,
I mentioned,
right.
everything's very liquid, which means it's very subjected to the interest rate market.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, all right, just
That's
curious.
purely it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sassen.
I just have a general question about, do we know why we're expecting eligible development projects to drop in this biennium? Anybody?
Well, it's based on, so I get my projection from Sam in development, in the development department. And, it's just based on the activities that are happening in her department and where developments that we had a lot of development happening in 23-24. And we're just seeing less coming forward going into the next biennium. So it's our awareness of what's, coming. Yeah. Oh, sorry, this one's a little hard to see. Public Works Operations Center. I think Richard's going to join me in case there's questions that I can't answer. So as you're aware, this is on page 169. This fund is created for the design and development of the Public Works Operations Center. The adopted CIP budget is 22.5 million. The beginning fund balance of 17.93 million, real estate taxes of 1.8, and surface water management fund monies of 1.8. That is the anticipated revenues for 25-26. And then expenditures will be 16.8 million, 08 million for the design and construction, and 3.6 million for debt service. There's more coming. So how did we get here? This current biennium, we've completed the permits and the conceptual and schematic design, and we are in the process of issuing the bonds. So in 25-26, the final design will be completed. We will get the site development and building permits. We need to complete final construction documents and specifications for site improvements, and advertise bid for the construction, complete the site improvements, advertise and bid for the building construction, and then start building with the goal of completing by the end of 2026.
Is this the last slide for Public Works Operations
There's
Center?
one more. There's two more. This one and one more.
Okay.
So obviously this is just one project that makes up this fund that is located adjacent to Kenmore Middle School off of Northeast 222nd. Thank you, 202nd Street. And then we're going to be we have hired, sorry, one FTE capital projects manager to work on this. So this is about the construction costs. We had a question that was asked how much, what the original estimated costs were versus today's costs. And I know Jennifer worked on this. She's not here today, and Richard and I all kind of talked about this. And so my understanding is there was a lot of various sites and potential costs and things considered before we landed where we landed, but nothing of substance are we reporting, because it was just kind of a moving target and there weren't any settled costs, and it's going to be this amount of money. So what was brought to council that was a distinct presentation about the cost was in September 2022. There was project plan for 36.5 million, which was for a full build out, all the environmental features, everything that could possibly be needed or wanted. And we were told to go back to the drawing board because that was too much money. So that's what happened. And then in November of 2022, a new cost and a proposed $20 million budget was brought forward. And then in July 2023, there was a new funding plan increased to 22.5 million, which was approved by council. And then in September 2023, that $22.5 million was adopted as part of the CIP.
If I could, Your Honor, if I could add to that. We were scrambling, trying to put this together this afternoon. We got the request in this afternoon. So I also, for full transparency, want to add a little more information to this. So back in 2020, when we were looking at the Chaipatanapong property, our budget was in the 7 to 8 million range. And then when we went back to the drawing board in 2021 and we're looking at a bunch of properties, including the one we ended up purchasing, our budget estimate back then for this property was 7.768 million. So quite a lot less than the 22.5 that we're landing on. Back then, we didn't have any design or architectural cost estimates or anything. So I would like to update the slide to include the numbers I just mentioned, so that that's part of the record too. But yeah, so quite a jump from what we had originally estimated in 2020 and 2021.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Councilmember Lutsis, did I see your hand?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this information. Looking through, I noticed that the estimated annual bond payment is 1.8 million. And with the decline of interest rates and everything, do you know if it would make any sense to restructure debt at any point, or is that?
It's something we can look into, yeah, as time goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can evaluate that.
Of course, I just curious, thanks.
And we have not issued the bonds yet.
Okay.
We're going to any day now, probably, well, in early December, we will actually, the bonds will go to market. And we are seeing the cost estimate right now based on today's interest rates that we will be a little bit under 1.8 million in annual debt service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Page 171, Affordable Housing Fund. So this was a newly created fund in 2023 to collect and hold fees and grants related to affordable housing. This is a fee in lieu of that's collected from developers as an alternative to meeting certain affordable housing requirements. And we collected just shy of $500,000 in the 23-24 biennium, but we don't anticipate any additional revenues in 25-26 related to those types of funds. So that money will just sit there and can be used for future affordable housing needs. Environmental services. This is now the Richard Show.
All right. Yeah, so Surface Water Management Fund. So this is a fund in the budget that is supported primarily through the collection of a surface water management fee, which is assessed on every developed parcel in the city. So that's the primary revenue source. And then there's also usually occasional grant funds, depending on kind of what projects are being worked on that we may get during the biennium as well. But really it's funded through those surface water management fees. So the department and the environmental services team that work under this fund, primarily we manage the stormwater utility. So that's serves both public right-of-way and private property. So we do a lot of inspections, operations and maintenance work. The utility fund that I mentioned, we manage that and conduct rate analyses and maintain that budget. A portion of this funds the Climate Action Plan. We work on managing aquatic vegetation and our streams, river and lakefront. Another big component of what this funds is NPDES permit compliance. So there is a lot of mandated work that we must do as a city to comply with this permit, which allows the city to discharge its stormwater into the streams, river, and lake. We do a lot of the city's surface water planning in this fund. So that may include updating surface water elements of the comprehensive plan, surface water master planning. There's planning elements required through the NPDES permit that we continuously update and work on. Water quality issues. So we're responsible for monitoring water quality, responding to spills, illicit discharges. That include inspections, investigation, code enforcement, and then either conducting cleanup if it falls on us, or enforcing cleanup of water quality issues for third parties. Public education and outreach is a big component of what our department works on. That includes staffing events, putting together social media campaigns, just a variety of a lot of different outreach events that we do. Enforcement, as I mentioned, spills, but also construction and both city projects, private projects, development. We'll often work with other departments as well in public works and development services to enforce water quality codes and stormwater regulations. And then GIS is also kind of grew in this department and is managed in this department. It provides a lot of services, both through environmental services, but also citywide for different city needs in regards to GIS. In this budget, I just kind of highlighted here, and you can see more detail in the actual budget, but I've outlaid here our beginning fund balance, and over the biennium, our revenues are roughly about 10 million, and with about a little over 9 million expenditures, leaving us an ending fund balance of about $1 million. Just to highlight, a lot of this is ongoing work, but in 25, 26 specifically, there's more detail provided in the budget that dives more into this, but again, on operations and maintenance, that's really, it's an always growing body of work. I know I've been in front of you describing all the things that we do, and as new infrastructure is built, we're responsible for that, but we're also responsible for everything that's been built beforehand. So we annually inspect facilities going back to the 1960s, 70s, as well as everything that's being built today out there. We will continue having to inspect that on top of the old facilities ongoing. So a lot of inspections, maintenance. We conduct an annual small works program. So sometimes when things get a little bit too big for our in-house crews, we will manage annual contracts to kind of tackle those larger maintenance projects. And then we have a pretty strong seasonal work program for a lot of our vegetated facilities. So we've got to go out there and mow and weed and remove noxious weeds and do a lot of work there. Monitoring, I know kind of recently we've had some vandalism issues and equipment issues, but we'll be working to get all of that back online and going in this biennium. So we've made sure we've got some budget to make sure that's happening. Aquatic plant management. We implement the IEVMP, the Integrated Aquatic Vegetation Management Plan for the city, and we've been really expanding that program over the last few years. We manage the plants and weeds in the city's waterfront parks, and then also we have been kind of branching into looking at noxious or invasive algae blooms and plant blooms that have been emerging in our region over the last few years. So we're working with some of our citizens to help us kind of identify where that's happening. And we've got a consultant on board that's helping us kind of plan ahead for that and manage it. So a lot of good progressive work going on there. And then just as I mentioned with NPDES permit compliance, a new permit was issued this year. And so that often comes with new programs. So each year they'll typically be, they'll either expand on existing programs with new regulations where we've got to kind of build on what we're already doing with new mandated requirements. And in this permit, some of those include they're really branching out and requiring more stormwater management plans be produced. They're getting into the business of tree canopy. So actually our NPDES stormwater permit now is starting to have some requirements for us to start mapping and looking at our tree canopy and looking at the connection between that and stormwater management. Education and outreach is always expanding, and we're developing new campaigns targeting emerging issues in stormwater management. So you'll see some new outreach being produced in this biennium, new mapping requirements, et cetera. And again, sorry, I guess the second section is a little bit repetitive. I already talked, NPDES programs, but another exciting big project in this biennium too will be a surface water master plan update. So we've got some exciting updates planned for there. We want to continue working with King County and their Sammamish River CIS project. And actually I'll be bringing the King County's program manager for that to present to council in December. Rapid Progress Plus, so that was a big capital program, which I'm going to discuss in the next fund. And then some potential exciting shoreline restoration work on the Lake Point property. And then just kind of wanted to share, this is your current environmental services team. We've got myself, and then we've got a senior environmental services technician, 2 techs. We've got a capital projects manager hired this year, administrative specialist, and our GIS analyst, and our climate action plan program manager. And then also want to point out that we do actually directly fund staff in the operations department as well. So they conduct a lot of surface water maintenance of our utility. And so we're just actually paid directly a proportion of some of those FTEs, including the maintenance supervisor, about 3/4 of their time in a portion of the senior and maintenance workers, as well as a team of seasonal maintenance workers every growing season.
Would you be willing to go back one slide?
Yeah.
Number one, I was really happy to hear your update on aquatic plant management. I'm pretty excited about this work that you touched on. So, but the big one and something that really made a smile come to my face, and I don't know if I've seen it before and it just stood out. Kenmore Environmental Action Now, the logo that we have on this slide, it's fantastic. It just put a smile on my face. I really like that, the city came together and came up with a logo like this, speaking to something so important. So thank you. That was it.
So this is actually a new fund on this slide. So any other questions on the surface water management fund, or else I can jump into the capital fund. All right. This one is.
Councilmember Sassen has a question for
I'm
you.
sorry to be a bit delayed. Back several slides. I mean, this is a phenomenal scope of work. I'm just, that one. I'm just curious how if you have an explanation for us on how there's going to be a roughly $600,000 surplus. Do you see that there at the bottom? We've got revenues and we've got expenditures and an ending fund balance larger than the beginning fund balance. Is that just how you being clever, or is there some?
I think it's timing. It's timing of when we're paying for it, because this fund is the operational fund and it feeds into the capital fund. And so it's
timing. That
it's
I
a
understand.
timing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that might become a little bit more clear when I jump into the capital fund here. But good segue. So now in the capital fund, again, this is another fund in the budget, and it has a variety of revenue sources there's a capital facilities charge, so all new development pays a fee into the system, kind of buys into it. We get a variety of grants for different projects, loans, and then whatever's remaining to fill that gap is a transfer from the surface water fund, so that each year you might see that little bit of difference. And, you know, that may be a result of, you know, we're kind of building up because we know that in the next year, there's, you know, a lot of money going to construction of some projects. And so we're building up some, knowing that it's going to be sent over that following year. So, so in this capital fund, it's kind of in the title, this funds surface water related capital projects and implements the Rapid Progress Plus program that council approved in fall of '23. So this includes fish passage culvert replacements, habitat restoration projects, stormwater facility retrofits, and the annual small works program that I mentioned.
Councilmember Lutsis.
Yes, looking at this, and I'm looking at the budget book here, and actually this last biennium, it looks like in terms of revenues, we came in about 2 million lower in the last 2 years than we had budgeted. And then expenditures, it looks like almost 4.5 million was less. And so I think, and you don't need to pull this up, I'll kind of just read what I'm saying. It looks like a lot of the work on the fish culverts was moved from last biennium to next biennium. Is that correct? Okay. And that's the source of that.
Yeah, so a lot of those differences in fund are because projects got moved. So the 190th culvert, for instance, ended up getting kind of bumped an entire year because of some permitting and property acquisition issues, which just became kind of unavoidable. So where we had planned to have a big chunk there spent, you know, completely kind of throws it off and got spent the next year.
Will there be any issues by moving it a biennium?
No, it's
Okay.
the budget that we presented is kind of up to date on everything to the best of our knowledge. But again, you know, those things can happen in the capital world, and we'll adjust and keep
Thank you.
council updated.
Thank you.
And so some of the projects coming in the biennium, I think we've discussed many of these with council already, so I kind of just have a real quick recap here. But we've got you know, stormwater facility retrofits. We have hopefully we'll get one constructed that's nearly complete in design and start design on another. As far as fish passage culvert projects, probably won't be any constructed in this biennium, but we're going to have you know, 8 in some various stage of design by the end of this biennium. And then acquisition and habitat restoration projects, you know, we kind of are evaluating those annually, but we would anticipate you know, 1 to 2 acquisitions, and those typically include you know, some type of restoration. It might be as simple as demolition of existing structures and just kind of returning it back, all the way to something more involved, like what we're designing on the on 73rd for Muck Creek, where it's really a more full stream restoration and more in-depth project. And then small works, as I mentioned, is typically an annual contract that we do in the summer. And
Finish your thought and then I have something.
oh, I was just going to jump to staffing and wrap up. So if you want to enter.
Yeah, so this, could you give the council an update on the joint grant we're applying for with WashDOT for 0056?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I am trying to work with their staff to hopefully get an actual presentation put together so we can provide an update on that. But we did submit an application with the Federal Highway Administration for a total grant of 15 million. So 10 million would go to WashDOT and 5 million would go to the city. And this would be for them to remove the passage, the fish passage barrier that goes under 522. So they are purchasing the Jack in the Box property, and they would remove that and completely open up the stream starting on that property and bring it under 522 all the way down to the trail. And then we're coordinating with WashDOT, King County and the adjacent private property owners to remove another 3 barriers between the trail and the outlet on the private property. So yeah, so if we can get that money, I think that entire stretch, we're removing multiple fish passage barriers and hopefully getting some federal help on that. And as of just a few days ago, we just learned that they have finished the acquisition of Jack in the Box and they're actually going to own it as of January 1st. So that will be happening pretty quick here. And then they plan on doing construction in 27 at the latest.
Yeah, so this is a really cool grant because we're jointly applying with WashDOT and it's gonna knock out several culverts all at once. So pretty excited about that. And kudos to Richard and Andrew, also Doug Levy for helping out as well, so.
Yeah, you want to talk about some big meetings when you need WashDOT, King County Parks, King County Solid Waste, the city. I think we're putting Microsoft Teams to its limits.
No small feat, and we're certainly grateful for your work on this. It's incredibly
Yeah.
important work. Thank you.
And again, just to kind of reiterate what Councilmember Lutz just mentioned earlier, I mean, that's a whole like, this grant is causing us to reshuffle everything again because, you know, we didn't have that one planned, but we also don't want to miss an opportunity where we can get that much funding for a project. And so we're kind of jumping on that, see if we get it. And then, you know, hopefully in a few months, we'll know that answer and then we'll know our path forward. And then last, just again on staffing, so the capital projects manager, which we hired this year, is fully funded out of this fund as well as some of my time. And then also engineering does support some projects. And so when they're working on surface water related projects, they can just charge directly to this fund as well. So you see on the right side, our senior civil engineer and our capital projects manager, depending on what projects they have going on, can also be using the funds out of this capital fund.
It looks like
Councilmember
this is a
Sassen.
duplicate slide.
I
There
just
is
want
one
to
more.
acknowledge that, you know, we know that grant money is not free. And I just commend the nimbleness of your work and your department. I appreciate that you're staying flexible with what projects you're doing, depending on availability, and not just putting one foot in front of the other, plodding along. Your creativity and your initiative is really appreciated. I get a chance to say that.
All right, this slide must have been an accident.
Mm.
And then I think this is last for me. We have what we call a Swamp Creek Fund. So this is another individual fund within the budget. This was established in the 2000s when we conducted the 73rd Avenue flood improvement projects, when we replaced the 73rd Bridge and did some work along 73rd there, where I'm sure everyone knows has a long history of flooding issues and in that area. And as part of that project, we have an MOA with King County that kind of established this fund to provide dollars for maintenance of Swamp Creek projects, acquisition, restoration of land within the Swamp Creek Basin. And for this biennium, you can see we've got some site mitigation work at Jojoris that is eligible for this funds. And so we're going to use some of the funds for that. And but after that's said, we'll still have about 343,000 remaining.
Member Lucas.
You said 343? Maybe I just can't, maybe I'm not seeing it on the Swamp Creek. Let's see, Swamp Creek, is that the same as Swamp Creek Basin Fund? I think so. I'm seeing 423 as the ending fund balance.
Yep, it looks like maybe there was a little, somebody got the numbers a little backwards, but yes, the
Okay.
number should be 423,
All right,
350.
just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Good job.
It's nice to see more money there. Thank you.
We double subtract.
But if I could just add that the intent is for this fund to continue to fund the ongoing plant establishment and maintenance beyond this biennium.
Yeah.
So we'll need this fund balance for future.
And then just ending, so in this fund, it doesn't directly support any staff cost, and typically, it's, yeah, and it's just restricted to the Swamp Creek Basin, in there, so that's why, you know, it's not everything is eligible, around the city, it has to be within that basin.
Okay. This is our last fund slide. And so this is our equipment replacement fund, page 188. And we kind of skim money from every department during the 2 years of the biennium and set that money aside for future replacement of vehicles, computers, equipment, and other different items that are needed. Beginning in 2025, $120,000 is being proposed to be transferred from the general fund into this fund, but in a separate, being held separately from the equipment money to create a reserve for building preservation. So this fund would house both building preservation dollars separately from equipment replacement dollars. We have for about $466,000 of revenues from contributions and some interest income planned for the biennium, and $525,000 of expenditures planned for a sweeper replacement and some vehicles and technology purchases. And we would have an ending fund balance of $800,000.
Councilmember Lutsis.
The projected, again, I'm seeing maybe a little difference here in the projected ending fund balance.
791,856.
Oh, no, I see that right. Okay, so total equipment replacement fund is
Yes.
different from ending fund balance. Okay,
Oh, yeah, just ending fund balance is the
Just
number
ending
I'm
fund
telling, yeah,
balance.
the
Okay, thank you.
791,
Thank you.
yes.
So we're overdue for a new street sweeper. We bought the current street sweeper in 2012, and so it's way past its life. And then I don't know if it's being held together on duct tape and baling wire yet, but we definitely need a new street sweeper, and we've been holding out for far too long.
Mr. City Manager, is there the plans just to scrap it or any salvage value or anything on the street sweeper?
Richard, what do we do with the surplus of the old street sweeper?
I don't want to make Jennifer mad, but ideally we should surplus it and move on, but you know, if it's working all right, it might be nice to have that additional resource. We did just do some pricey maintenance on it, so.
I did see, I think on one of the past funds too, source of revenue is street sweeper rental or something like that. But it said 0 last biennium and this biennium, so I wasn't sure. Anyways.
Okay, so you've seen 2 other series of presentations regarding the budget, and then tonight's. There will be a public hearing and a presentation on the 12th, next Tuesday, and there will be an opportunity for council to make recommendations to the budget. It's not a time for more research to be done or anything like that. It's literally like, I don't support something, or I didn't see something I want. So it's going to be more of a high level. And then 11/25, the public hearing and potential adoption of the final budget. Any other questions?
Any questions or, oh, Mr.
Yeah.
City Manager?
I just want to underscore what Melinda said. So if you go back to that previous slide, so we see that on 11/12, so on Tuesday night, opportunity for council to make changes. Well, so after the public hearing, we will pause, take a breath, and see if any of you want to make any tweaks to what we've presented so far. And I'm hoping it's tweaks.
I like that word.
Yes. So.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Looks like we're ready for our next agenda item. B, proposed ordinance number 240617, amendments to the 23-24 biennial budget presented by Finance Administrator Director Melinda Merrill for discussion and possible action. Thank you.
Okay, so now before you are any final adjustments that need to happen before the end of this biennium. As you know, we cannot end the year with any negative balances in a fund. But more so than that, we cannot overspend without authority from the council. So if there's any budgets that look like we're going to spend more than originally was budgeted, we must make an accommodation for that. Yeah. So where are the adjustments proposed? You will see items in the general fund, the swim fund, Lake Point, CAPE, Public Art, and ARPA. So in the general fund, we are proposing an increase of $650,000 for to transfer money to Lake Point for those costs, to do some due diligence, consulting, whatever last minute things that we need to potentially spend before the end of December. So it's at this point a placeholder number, not really knowing how quickly things will move. But we wanted to make sure we had budget authority if we need it. And no changes are proposed to revenues. In surface water management, we're also looking to transfer $290,000 to Lake Point to help support potential activities there, and no changes to the revenues in that fund. So Lake Point Fund, here's some details. You've seen this before. This is reiterating the same information. The new fund will be brought forward on November 18th for council's approval to create that fund. There was a detailed discussion previously provided at the October 21st council meeting. The revenues that we are planning on for the end of this year and into the next biennium will carry forward. So a bond anticipation note of 1.3 million, the transfer from SWIM, the transfer from general fund, bringing in total revenues to 2.2 million. And then potential expenses, deposit on the property, consulting fees, legal fees, and a total cost of 2.1 million. In the Kenmore Automated Photo Enforcement Fund, we need to increase that by 200,000 to reflect program costs, which were not originally budgeted. Because we've added more cameras and whatnot, it's higher than we originally thought, which we also have higher revenues. So there's an equal increase actually in both. So they offset each other to a net zero impact overall, but we do need to increase for sure the expenses. In public art, we spent money for the story pole costs, which were not originally anticipated. And so we do need to show budget for that expenditure. After that expenditure, we'll have about $71,000 in fund balance. We are not asking for any changes to revenue. And the ARPA fund, according to the budget, it has dollars remaining, so we need to increase the expenditures to be able to do an entry to adjust for that. So we want to make sure it's all zeroed out by the end of the biennium and we don't leave any dollars sitting there. No changes to revenues. So here's a summary of all those adjustments. So 200,000 for Cape, 2.2 million for Lake Point. Those are your revenues. Expenditures, the big dollar is the Lake Point Fund, and then a total of 3.5 million of expenses. So here we are presenting this tonight. Just in a few more days, we will have a public hearing on these amendments and potential adoption. What questions do you have for me?
Not seeing any questions.
Yay.
Thank you for your outstanding work and presentation. I'm double checking. Yep, no questions. So you have done a great job. Thank you. And before adjournment, I just want to call attention to Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day. We will not have a council meeting in honor of our veterans. And we will be having that meeting on Tuesday, the 12th. So wanted to call attention to that. This is a special meeting. And with nothing left before us, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.